Good morning. Welcome to the PTNI's Daily Show. Happy Thursday morning. Hope your morning is off to a great start. My name is Alan. Happy to be your host today. Currently have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Operating Officer here at ICE and a faculty member in our fitness athlete division. We're here in Leadership Thursday, starting a little bit earlier than normal. We usually start at 9, but we're here at 7. Maybe we'll catch some different folks this early. For those of you who've been following for a very, very long time, the podcast used to happen at 6 a.m. Eastern every single day. Jeff would fire it up at 5 a.m. Central from his clinic up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then he would see a full day of patients starting at 6 a.m. after. So 9 a.m. is sleeping in by comparison. So if you were here on especially the Periscope days, you're used to early morning going live on this podcast. This is Leadership Thursday. We talk all things practice management, ownership, small business development. Leadership Thursday also means it is Gut Check Thursday. Speaking of Jeff sent in the suggestion for this week's Gut Check Thursday. Very simple but very high intensity workout. We have a 1-minute AMRAP. Inside that 1-minute AMRAP, we're going to do 10 cals for guys, 7 cals for ladies on a fan bike. And then you're going to hop off and do as many repetitions of a bar-facing burpee as possible in any remaining time. When that 1-minute timer beeps, you have a 1-minute rest timer, and then you basically start it up again. The workout is finished when you hit 75 bar-facing burpees. So it requires some strong biking, but also some strong burpee efforts to be able to chew through those reps and not get trapped on the bike where you don't get many or any repetitions of the burpee done, and you just spend a lot of 1 minute on, 1 minute off time trapped on the bike. So scale the bike appropriately, scale the burpees appropriately, aim to get done in not 5 rounds, 10 rounds or less. Obviously, the longer you go, the more time you'll spend on the bike, and it will get really nasty. So scale appropriately, have fun with that one. Some courses coming your way. We are back in action in the new year. We have some online courses starting next week. Next Monday, the 9th, we have a couple different courses starting. We have primary care physical therapy with Morgan Denny. We have persistent pain management with Justin Dunaway and Britt Laudeman. And then we have pregnancy and postpartum online with Christina, Alexis, and Jess. Those are all starting Monday. Registration is still open. And then next week, on Thursday, the 12th, we have Modern Managed with Older Adult Advanced Concepts available for those who have taken Essential Foundations already with the Older Adult crew. And then we have some more courses starting in February and March. So check out ptnice.com and click online courses if you're looking to jump into an online course. Live courses, we're busier this year already than we will have been last year. So we'll be out on the road 5 to 15 courses a weekend, except for holidays from now through the end of the year. So check us out online. Come find us. Just some courses coming your way really quick. Next weekend, the 14th and 15th, Zach will be down in Decatur, Georgia for Fitness Athlete Live. Zach Morgan will be up in Marshfield, Massachusetts for lumbar spine management. Mark and Lindsay will both be on the road for extremity management. Mark in Maplewood, Minnesota. Lindsay in Paoli, Pennsylvania. And then Christina and Alex will have Older Adult Live in 2 different locations. Christina in Nashville, Tennessee, and Alex in San Diego, California. And then finally, Justin Dunaway will be out in Maryland in Sparks, Glencoe, Maryland. The weekend of January 21st and 22nd. Alexis will be in Elmhurst, Illinois for Pregnancy and Postpartum Live. Lindsay will be in Marysville, Ohio for Extremity. Dustin will be in California for Older Adult Live, this time in Santa Rosa. And Justin will be on the road again for Total Spine Thrust in Columbus, Ohio. And in the last weekend of the month, the 28th and 29th, Zach Morgan will be in Memphis, Tennessee. And Lindsay will again be on the road for Extremity Management in St. Augustine, Florida. So check that out, ptnice.com, click on courses, and check us out where we're coming your way. So let's get into today's topic. Where the wolf dies, the pack survives. We're talking about starting to create a fitness-forward team in your community that goes just beyond the walls of your physical therapy clinic. Want to tell some stories today and then talk about how to start to build that fitness-forward team. So I want to talk about the concept of with your clinic, if you are running a clinic already or you're thinking about one, is your goal to create a job for yourself? Or is your goal to grow a business? Because those are 2 very different paths that have 2 very different strategies inside of them. I want to talk about starting to work with other providers in your community and starting to create an alliance of folks who are a little bit more forward-minded in their practice. And also finish with talking about how much we have the upper hand in this area as physical therapists, which is which is not something we get to say about physical therapy very often. As a whole, the profession is quite behind on a lot of things, but in this area, we're actually quite ahead, and we have a lot to share and teach other providers about different payment models and different practice models. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start with a little story of a young physical therapist who was tired of having patients go back for checkups with their physician or their surgeon and being told to stop doing the exercises he prescribed, to stop maybe attending physical therapy altogether, and how frustrated that physical therapist became with working with other providers, and who promised when he had his own practice, he would just circumvent those folks and never have to think about relying on them or working with them ever again. And flash forward many years, that therapist is me. And I could not have been more wrong. And along the way, I've learned a lot, and we're going to talk about some of that here today. I think about patients that I see now, patients that reach out to our clinic who have had a poor experience with physical therapy elsewhere. And I think, gosh, if only that provider who initially referred them to physical therapy knew about a higher level clinic to send that person to, so that they would have had a better experience, how much better that would have been for everybody. The referring provider always wins when the patient is happy, because they really did nothing but make the referral, yet they look like a big helper in the scenario. The PT wins because the patient is satisfied with physical therapy. And of course, the patient wins, which is the ultimate goal. I think of having a patient right before the end of the year last week who reached out for a second opinion, who had gone to another physical therapy provider, had been seen twice a week for 30 visits, so almost 4 months, for medial elbow pain, and sent me his plan of care, and was doing a very basic lateral elbow plan, including passive wrist stretching, some light dumbbell rotations and flexion and extension, and just a really canned, pre-generated underdose program. That patient wasted a lot of time and money twice a week for 30 visits. That's about $5,000 in care to get absolutely no better. And whenever those patients reach out to us to try to schedule with us, I think, boy, who referred you to that physical therapist? I'm not worried about yelling at that physical therapist. I'm not worried about trying to teach that physical therapist. I want to cut that person out of the equation entirely. I want to know who referred that person to physical therapy, and I want to get in front of that person so that they stop referring their patients to clinics that do not help patients and just take their money to not get them better, and instead send them to providers in their area who know how to help patients and deliver outcomes. And I really want to cut out the middleman and go right to that referring provider, which is a very different approach to again, how I first believed that I wanted to cut out the referring provider and work directly with the patient. While that is still true, while we still always advocate, especially at our clinic here in Michigan, that you don't have to see your physician first if you don't want to, you can come start physical therapy right away. At the end of the day, I'd rather be in front of that referring provider than not. So this brings us to the question of, what is your goal with your practice? Is your goal just to run your own race, make your own hours, make it so that your dress code is that you can wear stretchy pants to work? Are you creating a job, or are you interested in growing a business? Are you interested in growing a practice? Are you interested in being known as a high quality place for physical therapy in your city, in your state, in your region? Are you interested in starting to maybe compete against some of the larger groups in your area who you know do not provide the best care? And if we're thinking about that mindset of growing a practice, growing a business, having multiple folks work alongside us as we grow, then we really need to understand that we need a lot of help, right? That if you are a cash-based practice, you're seeing 20 to 30 people a week, you will never outpace a large clinic chain with 1,000 clinics with 10,000 providers who are seeing more people in a day than you might see in a month, than you might see in a quarter. So we need to recognize that if we are trying to move low quality PT out of the profession by competing with them, we have to get a lot more competitive. How do we get a lot more competitive? Well, our phone needs to ring with patient referrals more than those other clinic phones need to ring with patient referrals. So how do we do that? We need to find allies in our community. So our second point here is something that is often attributed to Jeff Moore. It's actually just a proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. But if you truly want to grow your practice, if you're thinking, I want to have as many people here on my team as possible, maybe I want to have multiple locations, then that is not going to be supported by just hanging out at your 80-member CrossFit gym or your 25-member running club. Yes, you will generate patients from those sources. You may even generate enough for you to have your own caseload that's sustainable. But is that enough to sustain a caseload for 3 providers, 5 providers, 15 providers at 3 different locations around your city or your region? The answer to that question is probably no. That those are great sources. It's nice to work directly with people. It's always nice to work with active people. But we also need to recognize active people are an incredibly small percentage of the population. Actually, just 11% of the population exercise on a regular basis and meet the very bare minimum norms for exercise. So we need to recognize, how do we capture that other 89%? Well, they're out in the community. We can certainly reach them directly, but we need some help reaching them. And probably the most time and cost efficient way to reach them is just to start to work with primary care providers in our area. We need to recognize these providers are as frustrated with the system as we are, which is interesting because the system was created by and for them, but it's kind of outgrown them and turned on them. That, I think of working even in the early 2000s as an exercise physiologist, working with a cardiologist who was complaining then about insurance authorizations for evaluations, follow-up visits, prescriptions, tests, all this stuff. And said, when I first started back in the late 80s, early 90s, I just literally had a stamp that said treatment rendered, and I put that claim in the mail. And about 2 weeks later, I got a check back. And that was the end of my relationship with the insurance company. So they are feeling the pain as much as we are, arguably, if not more, that their volume has had to increase significantly and their paperwork has had to increase significantly. So the system that they've created has turned on them significantly. So they're frustrated. They're looking for help. Most of them have the same goal as us. They want patients to have excellent outcomes. They are not really as interested as we might think in just making a bunch of money and not helping people. The people that don't get helped continually show up on their caseload and are frustrating for them. And they want, at the very least, those people off their caseload. And we can help with that, but we can't help with that unless we begin to work with these physicians and we let them know, most importantly, that we're in our area. I was at the CrossFit Level 1, Healthcare Provider Level 1 seminar back in December in Boulder, and there were a lot of questions and discussion during the Q&A part of the course at the end of Saturday. There were a good mix of physical therapists, physicians, nurses, a wide variety of physicians, ER docs, surgeons, primary care providers, and a lot of good discussion of how do physical therapists get linked up with physicians. And to me, the answer was very obvious, sitting in the back of the room and trying not to infringe too much. But physical therapists who are set up in their CrossFit box, who have a great relationship with the CrossFit owner, the coaches, who get patients to come see them from the gym, but who have absolutely no relationship with anybody else in town that practices medicine and really doesn't even know they exist, right? Very easy to not know there's a new physical therapy clinic in town. They're popping up all the time, but especially when they're hidden away in a CrossFit gym. They don't take insurance. They only take cash. They're really quite hidden away. And on us, it's going to always be more beneficial if we reach out to those providers than expect them to somehow stumble upon us and then start referring patients to us without any effort on our help. So we need to get outside of the walls of our clinic and go start to interface and work with these providers in our community. How do we do that? How do we make this actionable? Well, start with your patients that you're already seeing. Hey, Steve, who's your primary care provider? Oh, I see Dr. Smith. He's pretty old school. He's always trying to get me to take pills and stuff. Okay. Maybe I don't want to reach out to Dr. Smith. Hey, Susan, who's your primary care provider? Oh, you know what? I see Dr. Johnson. She's so great. She's always on me to exercise more. She's always asking how much water I'm getting, how much protein I'm getting. She's always telling me to try to move more, giving me some banded exercises to try for my shoulder pain. That's how I ended up here. She's wonderful. She seems to be really on top of things. Ask your patients, who their provider is and start to get an idea of who seems to be practicing in a more up-to-date fashion than others, and start to write those names down. Those are people you're going to want to look up. Where are they at? Are they in the area? Do they have a clinic? What's their background? And really start to develop a list of people that you want to start to meet. Another way is to just Google it, right? It's 2023. Just Google it, man. Start to look in your area. Are the providers in your area, and dig a little bit deeper. Is anybody in the functional medicine category, maybe extra training in school, residency, or fellowship in functional medicine? Those are probably going to be the folks that we want to work with as well, that are a little bit more into the exercise and diet prescription and less in the pills and surgery and injection side of the equation. Those are the folks that we probably want to work with. Now, how do we start working with them? Well, our mindset is to go offer maybe a workshop or something. We need to recognize they're just as busy as we are, that they probably don't have 3 hours in the middle of their day for your cool overhead squat workshop or get better at double unders workshop. The type of things that get you patients directly are probably not going to help you connect with primary care providers, right? Certainly, they might want to get better at double unders or increase their core strength, but that's patient-centered stuff. We need to think about, what do providers want to see? When we step back and say, what would make a primary care provider's day a little bit easier? Start simple. Hey, do you have anybody who comes to see you for headaches or migraines? That's such a softball, right? Or low back pain. They're going to say, yes, all day long. 4 people an hour. Yes, I have people who've been seeing me for a decade for migraines, and they're not any better. And they've been to a million specialists and had a bunch of different imaging and injections, or somebody who has an onset of chronic headache that comes and goes and is in and out of my clinic. They have those pain points, those populations of patients that they don't really know how to help, who are not getting better with what they traditionally recommend and prescribe, and they want your help doing that. So instead of patient-focused content, provider-focused content. Hey, Dr. Smith, what if I came in on Thursday at 12:30 and I brought lunch for everybody? You tell me what to bring, and for 30 minutes, I'm going to show you how to do a test called the cervical flexion lateral rotation test. It's going to help rule in the cervical spine as the pain generator for headache. Once I show you this test, if it's positive on anybody with a headache, that tells us that the neck is probably the treatment area, and that is probably going to respond pretty well to manual therapy. Treatment of choice there is thrust manipulation, and then just starting to load the capacity of the neck back up. So if you start to do this and you have those patients show up, or if you're already thinking of those patients that you've been seeing and not helping, that would be a good candidate for this test. This test takes 15 seconds to do. And that's somebody that you can get off your caseload and put on my caseload. That is the type of content that a primary care provider wants to see. It is helping their caseload. It's helping them help patients, especially difficult population patients that they may have not been able to help in the past. And that gets them from the primary care provider over to you. So think about things like that as you're reaching out to providers of, how can I help you help your patients? And you won't go wrong. Again, these folks want to have patients get better. There are, of course, some, just like there are any profession, who just want to make money off them. But in general, it's safe to assume that most of the providers you encounter, just like us, are focused on patient outcomes. And at the end of the day, don't care how they get there. They just want to know who in their community they can refer to that's going to do a good job. Our final point, wrapping up here, now that we've discussed about reaching out to these people, how to start to help them, is to understand that in this area in particular, we have the upper hand. That as folks in the primary care community are wondering about starting their own clinic, getting away from insurance, how do I get back to having actual time with my patients? They have really no idea what that looks like. It is still a new emerging area in primary care medicine, but it is not a new area in physical therapy practice. A lot of us have been doing this for a while. A lot of you have been maybe entirely cash-based for a while, and we need to understand we have the upper hand. But again, I think back to my experience at the healthcare provider level 1, that a lot of the questions now, instead of the PTs asking how to get connected with primary care providers, a lot of the questions for primary care providers were to other primary care providers in the room and asking, How do I get away from the current model I'm in where I'm seeing somebody every 10 minutes for 8 hours straight? How do I start to get back to maybe that one-on-one model, or geez, maybe even 30 minutes with somebody? And this is where we can really help. When people ask questions like that, again, I smile in the back of the room and try not to infringe too much, but I think this is something that physical therapists have nailed down quite well, if only out of necessity, that we know what it looks like to take our practice out of network, or maybe to hybridize our practice and start to drop the insurances that don't pay well, that have a lot of paperwork, and just take the ones that pay very well and are very easy from a back end standpoint. And we know how to be entirely cash based as well. We're very familiar with the laws and the rules in our state regarding this. And this is a really good way, again, if you're thinking, how can I reach these providers? If you know those providers who are thinking about doing this, you're already doing it yourself, you can be a great resource for these folks. That PT is behind in a lot of things, pretty much everything: practice, pay, time worked, volume of patients needed. But it has a lot to share with primary care providers in a guiding role of how to change their practice model, change their payment model, or both. So don't be afraid to be a resource in that regard as well. We don't just have to help them with their patients. We can actually help them with their practice as well, especially if we're somebody who has already made the transition ourselves to a hybrid or a completely out of network model. So going fast is always easy, but it may not always be the best long-term solution. So if you are thinking about trying to grow your practice just beyond you, that if you do want to be known for high quality physical therapy in your region, maybe this is the wake-up call to reach outside the four walls of your clinic or your gym or your running club or wherever you have your practice, and start to find those providers in your community who are on the same page, who need your help, both with their patients and their practice, and who can help you by, again, the goal is to have your phone ring more than the competition's phone. So give this some thought. I'm happy to hear any questions, comments, concerns, discussion points you have. I hope you enjoy Gut Check Thursday. You won't enjoy that, but you'll get tougher physically and mentally. So there's that, I guess. If you're going to be at a live course this weekend, I hope you have a fantastic time. I'll see you all next Friday for Fitness Athlete Friday. Have a great Thursday. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.